is Dean out in the waiting room? Do we need to bring him in?
Let's see.
Doesn't seem to be from what I can see, but maybe.
Were you referring to Jim Hegarty? Or
No,
someone
Jim
else?
Gillespie.
Okay, okay.
He just emailed us, so it seems he's active right now.
Yep, exactly.
So you are recording on Zoom and YouTube Live now.
Okay, very
Whenever you're
good.
ready to go.
All righty. We'll just wait for everybody to be here. I'm trying to figure out why I can't find what I just sent you all. Can someone email me back the email I mailed you?
With all the packet information, Michael?
Yes, yes.
Sure.
I have it right here. I can do it.
Yeah, okay.
I've got it right here.
Thank you.
Sent.
I don't know why it's not in my sent list, but I don't want to have to figure it out right now. It's been a long. Okay. Here's the stuff. Okay, there we go. The packet. Thank you very much.
There's Dean.
Loading, loading, loading. There it goes. Okay. I just needed the agenda. Okay, where's Jim?
There he is.
Oh, there he is. Okay, yay. And Dean is spelled Dan. He's become Dan in the meantime. Okay, so are we all here? We're all here. Yes, hooray. Okay. So, here we go. Agenda for Southborough Historical Commission meeting Tuesday, January 12th at 6 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general laws, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Historical Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at https://www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may also do so in the following manner: https://www.southboroughtown.com, remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. There we go. So, call to order at 6:04, January 12th, 2021. Welcome everyone to the new year. Hooray, we made it despite occasional problems. Okay, first thing on the agenda is to approve minutes from December meeting. Dean, you just sent these over. Were there changes from the ones that we had read just earlier? You're muted, my friend. Dean, you're muted.
Corrections that were minor corrections from Kate, Annie, and Jim.
Okay. So they were just corrections from the pieces that
There was nothing of significant nature except a statement that Annie wanted put in that you asked her to do something. And so I added that one and she saw that, I believe.
Okay. Okay, that's good for me. All right. So let me just see. Okay. Do we have to vote? I forget. Do we have to vote to approve these minutes? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's do the roll call.
You can do them all in one motion.
What?
You can do them all in one motion, though.
Oh, and how is that done?
Just list the dates. You know, make a motion to approve.
Well, there's only one.
No, there are two, aren't there?
Nope.
There's two.
There's two.
Wait,
The 10th and the 17th, right?
Mhm.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I forgot that we met twice. Yes, exactly, there too. Yes, all right. So I would make a motion to approve the meetings from December 10th and December 17th. Rebecca Deans-Rowe,
Yes,
yes. Annie,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes,
Amanda,
Yes.
Jim,
So seconded and yes.
yeah.
seconded and yes.
I was gonna
Thank you. I'm out of practice, out of practice. Okay, great. And Waisan says yes, and with great thanks as always to these wonderful new minutes that we're getting from Dean. Thank you so much, sir. They really are terrific. And Kate, we're going to move into this shortly, but we are making sure that our friend Mr. Dean is getting paid, right?
Yeah, he has to submit an invoice to me.
Okay. All right. So we'll.
Going forward, I don't know, for our next budget year, but, yes, he just needs to submit an invoice to me.
Okay.
We'll talk about,
Yeah, we can talk about it, Dean.
Okay. All right. So you guys will handle that. All right. So I'm just checking to make sure that everybody gets the money they're entitled to. So the first thing on the agenda, and everyone will have a chance to update on your various boards and commissions, but the first thing on the agenda is Annie with the old burial ground and the subsequent CPC follow-up.
Yes. So as you guys probably remember, at our first December meeting, Michael made a note to our commission that the old burial ground seems to already be in some disrepair, even after the recent CPA project to restore and renovate the grounds in 2018. So as our liaison to the CPC, I was able to dig up a little bit more information about the project, just to answer some questions we had and kind of figure out where we can go from here, what recourse we might have. So I did confirm that we did indeed go with a higher priced contractor, Gravestone Services of New England. And we did pay them in full $23,000 for the services they rendered for the complete master plan, phase 1 and phase 2. So that answers kind of the first question, confirming, who we used and what that looks like. So one thing that still remains a little bit unclear is whether or not anyone officially signed off on the work. Whether that was, someone from our commission at the time or the DPW, that's kind of still a question mark. But at any rate, one thing I wanted to note is that every CPA project requires a maintenance plan to be submitted as part of the project application. And in this particular instance for this project, we had worked with the DPW who would take over the maintenance of the old burial grounds after the master plan project had been completed. And specifically, part of that maintenance includes a yearly inspection by a qualified conservator. So I was in touch with Karen Galligan last week. Unfortunately, the planned annual inspections did not happen in 2019 and 2020, but she has committed to doing an inspection this year in 2021. Without knowing what's going to be surfaced from the inspection, she can't really comment on whether additional work can be done this year, but she's committed to at least doing the inspection, which I think is a good first step, to kind of compare what work we already did to what the status of, some of the issues are now. So in order to move forward with that inspection, sooner than later, Karen is asking our commission to recommend a vendor or a conservator to do that work. So that's mostly what I want to bring to discussion to the group tonight. We did have a vendor that we used obviously for the project. Whether you guys think we should, continue using them or perhaps choose someone else based on some of the concerns that Michael brought up. So I guess I'll open it up to the commission for comment or questions on this project.
Well, I had thought it was the problem with the vendor. That may not be the case. since the surveys weren't done. I think the problem here is, and I hope I'm not blaming the dead incorrectly, but Kate was in charge of this, and she was very ill at the time when she was doing this. She was not in her best mode. So Rebecca, do you remember that she signed off on this? Because she was with this, right? I mean, that was her.
And
Yeah.
I expect she probably did, and I can dig up the paperwork and
Okay.
have a look again.
Because I think, I think there were some questions at the time about, how it all played out. But now without the inspections, so now we really don't know what the story is.
But I do recall walking through it myself when it was done, and the stones were level and clean, and it looked like it had been done. And I was shocked myself the last time I went there and saw, how some of them are sinking and tilting. And so I'm not sure. I guess there's a question of whether the work was done correctly.
And so one thing that an inspection will surface is, they'll look at the specifics of what the issues are now. And, Karen has the master plan of work that was completed, the 89 headstones that were already repaired. They can compare and, contrast whether it's new issues or issues from, the previous work that was done.
And is that $200 deemed sufficient to do this work?
So in the CPA application, that was just an estimate. Basically, it was, just saying DPW will do the inspection, and we estimate kind of just for their purposes, it'll probably be around $200 a year, but that wasn't a firm budget.
And are there additional funds if it's not a firm budget? Because that seems very low to do an assessment.
I think that would be a question for Karen, because it's at this point after the project has been completed, we've basically turned it over to the town. The
right, so
DPW in the town is responsible for the ongoing maintenance.
Got it. Okay, so it's not a CPC fund thing.
Right.
Okay.
It's kind of, now that it's completed, we've paid the invoice. It's kind of moved on to the next phase of the project's life, which is maintenance.
Well, my inclination would be to give the vendor who did it the first time around a chance to come back and sort of look at his work. So I might suggest to Karen, if you guys are agreeable, that we ask them at least to come back and say, hey, this is what is expected or not expected, or this didn't work out, before we embark into other realms. Does that seem to make sense?
That seems fair and reasonable, yeah.
All right, so Annie, could you communicate that to Karen?
Sure. Do we need to vote on that, or can I just go with that information?
I don't think, I think I see unanimous consent on that. So I think you can just go with that.
Michael, would you be wanting Annie to imply anything more specific about, other than just look at your work? I mean, do you want to point them in an eye towards correction or, accuracy, or any guidance you're going to want this to go to?
Well, I think what we need to do is look at what's fallen down now and look at what they actually repaired and see whether or not those things overlap. Because if what's fallen down now are things that weren't repaired in the first go round, that's
Exactly.
our bad. If it's already fallen down for that was just repaired, then I would think would be, something.
That's my point. I thought we ought to give them some guidelines of what we're after.
Well, I mean, I certainly, in meeting with them, and I presume that we would, express our concern that, we're in this position so quickly after spending $23,000 just 2 years ago. I mean,
It does depend on which stones are the ones.
yeah, well, exactly. And there are hundreds of stones. And so if the ones falling down are different, I mean, that's an entirely different story. I just want to assure that the money that got spent on this actually came to some sort of fruition.
Mhm.
In general, as you know, I have great concern about the old burial ground in general, about the trees, condition of the trees, the replanting. And I got from Karen, and I was going to send it along today. And when we move on to something else, I'll research this for a minute while you guys are doing something else. They're planning some sort of like mini pocket park. Or making an application for this little mini pocket park on the land that abuts the library. And there's quite developed plans for it, actually. They're going for some type of community grant for this process that would actually provide a trail that would link the library up through it, open up a path in the burial ground and up to the side. Karen wrote me, you said, "I'm sure you know all about this already." And it's like, I didn't know anything about this. However, it was, she was saying, could we, write some support? And I said, yeah, we could, because we've talked about this already in terms of creating this cultural corridor. Obviously, this is something that, that we're very much involved in. So there may be some stuff in the works on this. I'm not quite sure how that's all going to play out. But in the meantime, I do want to keep this on the agenda because I look at the trees there. And at the rate we're going, the next generation is going to have bare ground, just like the Civil War monument. So, time to get started with some holistic planning on that. And Karen's great, so she'll be happy to work with us. She loves trees. All right, Annie, great. Thank you so much. That is fantastic. And we'll pick that up. So for next time, you can report to us back what Karen said and what the scheduling of that is going to be.
Yep, and I just wanted to mention, it looks like there's a hand raised in the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sam.
Oh, yeah, bring him up forward, please.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I add a couple of comments about the Pocket Park thing?
Absolutely.
I think it was 2 selectmen's meetings ago, or 3 maybe. The agenda had Karen doing an update, and there was a discussion about it. And one of the key points that was discussed was the integration with some sort of historic corridor, historic trail through town. And so there was conversation about that. And one of the follow-ups was Karen was supposed to get back to you guys and talk about it. This is the piece of property at the intersection of St. Mark's Street up there, just north of the library. That triangle that's a parking lot now, for part of it's for St. Mark's. And they're thinking about expanding the parking and doing some drainage work. There's a great puddle that pools there now since they did the stone wall work, and in the winter it freezes, so cars slide right through the intersection. So it's a great safety issue. But there is considerable discussion around that now, and clearly an opportunity for you folks to get involved and figure out how do you link what you've been talking about. And I've heard some of this conversation at prior historical commission meetings, some sort of an integrated, connected tour, if you will, through the town's historical assets in the downtown area particularly. So I don't think that, I've not seen any plans, but Karen has been talking with a variety of folks around the work that needs to be done. She's talking with St. Mark's about who does what, who paves what, and who maintains what, and so forth. But there was more discussion several selectmen meetings ago. That might be a useful one to take a quick look at and sort of get caught up to speed on that conversation. And then talking with Karen is clearly a useful thing as well, to get your 2 cents worth in there and ability to shape the thing. And Ryan and the library folks are also very active because there's a connection there to the parking lot. So that's what I know about it. And I think it's a great opportunity to get the right groups working together to come up with something that's an improved asset in that part of the town here. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam.
Sorry, I was muted. Do you see what I'm sharing?
Yep.
Okay, unfortunately, that is not the right one. So here it is. This is the area that they're talking about, which is this area in here. Oh, these are all very fancy. And this is the sort of trail that they're considering. Historic walk from the library through, it's not in the burial ground, but through some sort of garden and through this sort of, this little area here, which is sort of abandoned. And these are some conceptual plans for what this space might look like. One has like a flower. This is some sort of butterfly garden and flowering kind of thing going on. And the other one has like a little pocket playground here involved in it with this trail that sort of loops on through. I don't know, I think it's a great idea. I personally would like to get an extension here that would get us into the burial ground itself so that, you know, we could have folks actually walk through that space, which I think is just such a beautiful, you know, it's so quintessential New England. But anyway, so this has been, I guess, perking along quite substantially. As I
That's
said,
nice.
yeah, the first I heard of it. Yeah, absolutely. And this would tie in very well with what we're talking about with this proposed walk all the way down to 84 Main Street and then down the other side here, down Main Street, down to the where the old train station would be. So I hope that this thing actually gets, you know, some traction and some funding, of course, which is always the case for us here in Southborough. Okay, all right, so that's that. Report on Southborough Historical Commission contributions to the town master plan. Kate Battles.
Hi guys, so I am the recording secretary for the master plan. So I am at those meetings. So since we're kind of a small group, it's hard for all of us to go to a lot of extra meetings. So they just asked for a little bit feedback from us so that we can make sure that our section in the master plan update as what we would like it to have. So I sent you guys a document. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it. We do have a meeting, a master plan meeting tomorrow night. You know, I can let them know, of course, in this short notice, we might not have everything completed that we might like to contribute, though it's not a ton of information. But I just want to let them know that we are working on it because they are definitely looking to start drafting that update because they're hoping that it can be presented at town meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for March 20th, but there's sort of a general understanding that that will likely get pushed out a bit.
I thought I saw a date in June.
It's not official, but that's proposed. Right now, it's actually March 20th.
I see.
But, you know, I don't think that's necessarily, we're going to be able to host something indoors or, but who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I know, who knows? So the overall goal for the Historical Commission is to protect, preserve, and develop historical and archaeological assets. Judith Watson, who has sort of been heading this up, is doing just an incredibly good job. That goal is basically pulled from our charter, you know, our charge as the Historical Commission. Just got to make sure that people are, you know, agree with that as the goal. Do you guys want to review this in detail? Do you want to take some time to look at this goal with, you know, the details underneath it and get back to me? How do you guys want to do this tonight? Well, let me just say, so that was the goal. That's the overall goal, which in my book is accurate. Then there's a few items underneath that. Like, is it still a goal of, there you go. Thanks, Michael. Is it still a goal of ours to recruit a historical architect? Admitted, I guess that was maybe in the 2008 master plan.
I don't even know what an historical architect is.
Yeah, same.
Oh, yeah, you go back to the original sent one.
What?
You go back to the original sent one and you forward it.
Yeah, but then can they?
Who do I hear?
Oh, yeah. If you forward it.
Okay.
Sam, I think we're hearing you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's all right. So that can be eliminated then. Because for me, in my time on the Historical Commission, that's nothing that we've ever discussed.
Well, so this language of preserve, protect, and develop historical and archaeological assets is the language from the founding documentation for historical commissions.
Okay, yeah.
I don't necessarily know that, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that is what we do. I guess I'm confused here. I think this all happened while I was in the penalty box.
Probably.
Rebecca, weren't you working on this master plan thing?
I went to a few meetings at the beginning and then I left. I don't have time.
Okay.
Right, so that's why I just recently that they've been working on lots of more detailed things. And that then I offered to, since I attend those meetings anyway, to provide our feedback as a commission. Like I said, I don't need to give it to them tomorrow. It's just something that we need to kind of get hustling on. It's not a ton of information, but we just want to make sure that we're represented in the update. And it's just, remember, it's not a whole new master plan. It's just a master plan update. Which is why you see stuff in there that says these were goals from the master plan update, like the national, the National Historic District, which is still a work in progress, which the way things have been going with the master plan, we would still incorporate that, even though it's in progress, because then it gets represented, within the next year or whatever it is as a success from that the 2020 master plan.
Kate, I was gonna say, Kate, when I went through it, it seemed benign and general. Maybe if we make some specific things here, it's good to be included, we ought to be included, but make it maybe a little more targeted and specific. So
absolutely, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, and so we could individually do that, or I mean, one of the things that I see that's really ought to be on here, maybe if it's not appropriate, tell me, is the macros update.
That absolutely should be on here.
I have some news on that. So that's coming up. So
Stick a pin in that.
Yeah, we're gonna stick a pin on that, but I got some big news on that whole thing. So that's coming up.
We definitely want, Jim's right. I mean, we want specific, accomplishable goals. We certainly want the the overview of what we want, the main goal, with all the, specific things underneath that we would like to accomplish. And they can certainly be on, a smaller scale. They can be things that are in progress, and they can be, bigger pie in the sky wishes as well.
Just as a point of reference, and this is no affront to Rebecca or Patty or anybody, but this reads like marketing goals and what we want our sales goals. you want quotable, specific account.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and because just like in any kind of project like this, you want it to be stuff that's accomplishable, that, in this update is supposed to be to represent the next 5 to 10 years. We want them to be things that we can accomplish. It has to get voted on. So then if it is something that's voted on, and then there's a good chance that you get support from the town to accomplish those goals. For example, like if we need to get money to do, request funding for the macros update, for example.
So
you get some town support behind that.
Here's what I would suggest on this. I'd be willing to take a crack at this language.
Right.
And then maybe send it to Jim for some buffing.
Sure.
Up to, to sales standards. Because, I mean, I don't think this accurately reflects where we are at the moment, especially with the adaptive reuse bylaw and, encouraging people to, really maintain and develop their historic properties. I think I'd like to see some more language around that. So anyway, I'm happy to do that. I'll send it to Jim. We can put it back on our next agenda for approval, and we should be able to have it to them next month. Does that sound all right?
Yes, because then there's a meeting. I believe the next meeting is February, I want to say like 13th or something along those lines. Oh, I have the calendar right in front of me. Actually, February 10th is the proposed next meeting. So if I can tell them that we will do our darndest to have some of that information available for me to discuss it at the February 10th meeting, that'll be great.
Sure. I think what we can do is send a tentative over to them beforehand if we haven't met before then, and then we'll just confirm it at meeting.
Sounds perfect.
Okay.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, you guys. I will, and I will report to them tomorrow night at the master plan meeting.
Okay.
Guys,
All right, updates from commissioners on other relevant town boards and business. Rebecca and I are going to use this to talk to you about the master plan and all, not the master plan, but Macris and all the other stuff that we learned. Does anyone else have anything to report on other various boards or commissions or any other news that might be of impending news to us?
Trails met last night and I had a conflict, so I haven't actually connected with either
Okay.
Trails or Open Space yet, but I do have an update on the National Register Historic District. So whenever
Okay.
that,
Why don't we go ahead with that then?
okay. So last time I spoke with Betsy Friedberg at MHC, which was, I believe, in May, she said that they hope to have by the end of the year MHC approval on this from the state board. And then our application could be sent to the National Park Service. However, Neil Larson, who was the consultant who was doing the application for us, has moved to the Midwest and apparently lost contact. So
What does that mean? Lost contact? Is this,
Well-
this the guy we hired?
yeah, so he submitted the application. MHC had some questions and they wanted to clear up some inconsistencies and resolve some issues. So they sent it back to him and they have not heard from him. Apparently she will try again. She said they heard from him initially where he said he was going to move to the Midwest and he would catch up, but they haven't been able to reach him. So
So where does this leave us in this
well,
process?
the hope was, so in May, the hope was it would be before the review board at the end of 2020. And now it's kind of looking like the end of 2021, she said.
We've got to find our missing consultant.
Yeah, she will try again. And then
Well,
she
can we
might
try?
also,
Rebecca,
Pardon me?
can you
What?
try? Can you hunt this guy down?
I'll-
Where
yeah,
the
okay.
hell are their questions?
yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit afraid to find out the answer, to be honest.
Well, better
You might have-
the horror that you know than the one you don't. I mean, because this thing has been perking along for 7 years or something. I mean,
Right. So, but there really is just a few questions that we might be able to answer ourselves. So she is also possibly going to send it to us to see if we can help them resolve a few things before the application goes to the state
okay.
approval.
All right. So can she definitely do can you contact her and ask her to definitely send this stuff
Yeah.
to us? Because I bet you we can answer these questions. If there are just a few questions with the records at the Historical Society, I'm sure we can, a little research, answer these questions and get this thing moving. And in the meantime, I want to know where Mr. Larson went.
Right. So, so next, after even it goes to the review board, it's scheduled for review. They vote and then they move it on to the National Park Service. But at that time, we also need to have another public informational meeting with members of MHC, Board of Selectmen, et cetera, to discuss it. And it's not looking like this will be something that we will be unveiling on Heritage Day. Let's just put it that way.
what a great goal for the 2020 master plan update
There you go.
for 5 to 10 years. So good.
This is just ridiculously long.
So there's another wrinkle. We have to, I let her know about the Neary barn. And she said that it
Oh,
will
you're
be
kidding me.
removed from the district data sheet, but it's mentioned several times in the narrative. She feels we should leave it there with a note that it has been demolished. So that's another change they're going to have to make. So that's the update. I will try to find Mr. Neil Larson and I will get her to send us what questions she has. For I'm sure, I'm 99% sure we can answer them.
Well, did he, so remind me again, did we hire this guy? Who hired him?
Yes, Kate.
Okay, and who paid him?
I,
Oh, didn't we get funds for the, yeah, we got funds at town
CPC?
meeting.
yeah,
Yeah, because I presented, we got funds for that at town meeting.
Okay. I want him to produce his damn
well,
report.
it's done. It's just he needs to answer
Well,
some.
I mean, if he got the money, he needs to finish up his report. So I mean, if you can't find him, I'll picture him. I mean, seriously.
I can find him.
All right. I mean, yeah, better you than me. You know what happens when I do this stuff? It's like,
Yeah, I think Dog the Bounty Hunter is available too.
yeah, exactly. I mean, seriously. I mean, if they're just waiting for some couple answers, let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah,
I mean, just if nothing else, in Kate's memory, I'd like to get this completed because as far
Yeah,
as
I
I'm
will-
concerned, this is the Kate Madison National Register District because she was the main force behind this.
I know. I will push a little harder.
Okay, so by next time we'll have an answer. That's a checklist item.
There will be some sort of answer.
Yeah, well, let us have her.
Good answer, Rebecca.
No, I'm not taking that answer. The answer I want to hear is that she will by next time have sent us the questions she has. And
Oh, well, I'm sure she can do that.
yeah. And then we'll track down Mr. Larson with a very stern little note saying, please finish your contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that was great. Anyone else with any other good news? No. Okay. Review seminar for commissioners on demolition delay bylaw. Okay. So thanks to our dear Rebecca, and I do say thanks to Rebecca because it really was her initiative. She had the brilliant idea of calling down to Mass Historical to get some guidance on this thing. Now, I don't know why I didn't think about this before. I think, again, poor Kate, she's been mentioned so many times, she's probably going to pop up on our screen here.
Well, I don't think you're talking about me too, so.
Oh, yeah, no, Kate Madison. She was always our contact with these folks and she knew them very well. And so I never paid much attention and it just wasn't necessary because Kate was always there to do all this stuff. In any event, Rebecca thought of calling down to talk about this stuff, both about the demolition delay bylaw in general, specifically about the pressure that has been put on us via 18 Middle Road to try to change the historical narrative, which I will just say I personally feel is completely unacceptable. We have been pressured by various quarters, including some members of the town government and other folks, to change the historical record or simply say, well, that really wasn't so. In particular, the architect for the clients at 18 Middle Road wrote me repeatedly and said, in your volunteer capacity, I'm sure that you would be able to, reconsider this, i.e. you people are not professional enough to know what you're doing, and I know better than you do. Regardless of the tone and tenor of those remarks, the fact of the matter is that there's photographic evidence showing that barn at the turn of the century. We have pictures of it, people sitting in front of it with the windows, the gutters. There's no question about this. And if there's a problem with the permitting process at 18 Middle Road, that it didn't get a demolition permit and why that happened or how that happened, that is an internal question for the building department and the town to resolve. That's not us. And I just want to say clearly for the record that we have utter confidence in the research on this and asking us to come back and take another look at this because there are other additional factors here, which have all been rebutted, by the way, just strikes me as alternative facts. And I'm not going back to the 4 years of alternative fact land. So, let's just move on beyond any discussion of trying to rewrite the historical record to exempt that structure. That being said, we had some very productive discussions about the way the demolition delay bylaw is written here, which would lead us directly into this next discussion. So I know you guys haven't really had a chance to read this or study this. I was originally intending that we would just spend some time reading the bloody bylaw and just getting more familiar with it because we have new members since this was done and other issues. But the discussions that we had with Chris were so productive because they actually have this whole demolition delay, set up your own demolition delay bylaw packet with sample languages. We talked him to the issues we were having. He had specific suggestions as to the language changes and ways out of our current dilemma about these issues. It just became, I just thought, the easiest way to do this is to send you guys some proposed revisions based on what he told us. And so I'm gonna just move on to that, if I have your agreement to do so. And I'll share the screen for this, because it was really quite brilliant, frankly. So by the way, the proposed changes are in the end of, or the sample bylaw is at the end of the packet I sent you guys. So you can all read their version of what an ideal demolition delay bylaw would be. Also,
sorry, Michael, to be clear, what we're looking at is the current Southborough delay bylaw with markups, correct?
With markups, yes. So we're looking at what we have currently with the markups. I would also very much urge you to read the National Register standards, which are the most clear and concise version I've seen yet about how to assess the historical value of a building. They're also going to be the standards that we'll propose using for this, which is the recommended policy, as opposed to the Secretary's Interior standards, which were always vague. In any event, I know you guys didn't get this until recently, so rather than going into discussion on this, I'd just like to put it on the table. We'll come back to this next time in detail, but I thought I'd take you through the overview of what he had said. So obviously there are many changes. There's a lot of red in this because we're changing commissioner to inspector to commissioner throughout. So there's a lot of those changes. One of the things, so the first principal thing that he pointed out is that according to the previous definition, and historically our architecturally significant building is this here. Do you see my cursor moving on this? Yes. This is the deleted. Any building in whole or in part which was constructed prior to 1925 and is included in the Southborough, Massachusetts Historic Property Survey prepared by the Commission in 2000 with revisions, et cetera. So what he pointed out was that if you are saying that this is your definition of an historically significant building, then you don't need to meet again to say that this is an historically significant building, because you've already put yourself in a repeat, you've already defined it. So by the bylaw, any building constructed that meets these criteria is deemed historically significant. Now, it was never the intention of the bylaw to not allow a preliminary review of this. So the process, just to review, is that you get a demolition permit, you decide whether the building is historically significant. As the bylaw currently stands, it simply says they're all significant. And then if it is decided not to be significant, then that has an immediate out. So it doesn't even go through this whole demolition delay process. If it is historically significant, then it comes for the secondary preferentially preferred. And so that involves the entire demolition delay bylaw. So one of the things that happened is that in defining this way, oops, I've lost this. We have essentially eliminated the quick out, which they recommend putting in, because obviously not every building on that, everything on that survey may or may not be, if it's been burned down or if it's entirely rebuilt, there needs to be an initial triage. So this language restores the triage. So it defines in principle what an historically or architecturally significant building is, and then allows the commission to come back and vote on that.
The other benefit of it is that it makes it an evergreen bylaw. It doesn't have a hard date. It kind of updates as time goes on.
Right.
Yes, well, that's the other change here. Instead of having a hard date, it becomes evergreen, because you pick a date, and it could be 75 years, it could be 85 years, it could be whatever we ultimately decide to do. They said 50. I don't think that that's rational here, but so very quickly, what they're proposing is the definition of an historically or architecturally significant building are these two factors, which are essentially the National Register criteria. That it has significance for these various points associated with historical persons or events, or history of the town or Commonwealth, and that it's important in itself because of style, construction, association, etc. So that restores the language that probably should have been there from the very beginning. Preferentially preserved is the same. So the first thing is the procedure. So the old text was here that said no permit for the demolition of historically architecturally significant building shall be issued other than in conformity with, yes, et cetera, et cetera. So it automatically deemed all these buildings as historically significant. So that wasn't supposed to exactly be the case. So here's how this is supposed to go. No demolition permit for a building which is in whole or part 75 years or more old shall be issued without following the provisions of this bylaw. If a building is of an unknown age, it shall be assumed that the building is over 75 years old for the purposes of the bylaw. So, in other words, someone comes with a permit, the building is more than 75 years old, it comes in front of the Historical Commission within 7 days. So the other change that they've suggested is that, and these are the same language, is that the commission or its appointed agent, i.e. one of us or subgroup of us or the chair or whoever, could take a quick look at this and make a determination whether or not this needs to go down the demolition delay bylaw. This allows the public to have a quick out should it be required, or should it be legitimate? I mean, if there's some screw up on the survey, it's like, for instance, business on Breakneck Hill Road with this cellar that no one could look at. This would allow this to be quickly out of the gate. However, it also could be done within a meeting, so we can decide however we want to do that. But the judgment would be based on the National Registry criteria, which is this stuff up here, okay? So if it's considered to be not historically significant, then it goes out back to the building commissioner, it's over, demolished. If the building commissioner, if it is determined to be significant, then it comes back for a public meeting, just like it did previously, with the same time frame to decide on whether it is going to be preferentially preserved. The change here is just updating the notification method. Published in a newspaper of general circulation, which was the old language. It's like, you know, what's that these days? Excuse me. So this just brings the language up to date for what it should be for the modern time. Commissioner, this corrects a typo. Ooh, excuse me, I'm getting sort of an allergy reaction here. This is a new addition down here on age. This is actually in our guidelines about you have to have all the permits ready before the building can be finally demolished. They recommend this pulling this up front, so there's no question about this, and that it's clearly visible in the guidelines. There are 2 sites in Southborough that, had this been in place, you would not have the vacant lots sitting there that you do today. The one is the former Wright Tavern on the corner of Turnpike Road and Central Street, which is still vacant 20 years later after they took down that house. Now, granted, it was salvaged, but then it was sold out of town, so didn't help us much. And by the way, they consider that there's a note in that packet I sent you that says moving a structure is not considered a preservation success, which I thought was an interesting comment. Personally, I was pretty proud of that barn at Deerfoot Road, but okay, whatever. I still want that bathroom named after Sally and I. I'm getting something out of that building, I'm telling you. Anyway, so the point of this is that sometimes there's an impetus to demolish a building when in fact there is no possibility of building a new structure on that site. And that was the example of the Wright Tavern. That lot is so narrow and the perk is so bad that they have not been able to develop it, nor is there parking nor anything else. And because that house and structure were grandfathered in how close it was to the road and other features, it was allowed to be there. No one's been able to figure out what kind of structure they can put there again. So, the point of demolishing this stuff before you know what you're going to do with it is really stupid. So this encourages people to have a plan in place to make sure that they can actually do something that they're proposing to do. The other great example with this, and you have to have been in town for a while to remember this, is just before you get to 495 going west, in the 1990s, they demolished the Mary Finn house to build a Wendy's. And beyond that was a beautiful white farmhouse, which was the Little Deerfoot farmhouse. It had incredible magnolia trees around it and lilac hedges in the spring. For reasons unknown, that house was sold and demolished, and that lot has been sitting there vacant for the last 15 years. So, I don't know whether it has approval or whether it has the problems, but it's bad enough to lose these historic structures. At least let us lose them for a reason on a lot that actually can be used. So that makes sure that that language is incorporated. This is currently the rule now. As I said, it's in the guidelines, but it should be moved up into the language. La 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 la. Commissioner. Okay, so this is the other big change. Mass Historical recommends that there be this language included in demolition delay bylaws. Any owner of a building subject to this bylaw that demolished a building without first obtaining a demolition permit in accordance with the provisions of this bylaw shall be subject to a fine of not more than $300. Each day the violation exists shall constitute a separate offense until a faithful recreation of the demolished building is completed or unless otherwise agreed to by the commission. So the rationale here is, well, then I'll just read the rest of it. If a building subject to this bylaw is demolished without first obtaining the demolition permit, no building permit shall be issued for a period of 2 years from the date of demolition on the subject parcel of land or on any adjoining parcels of land under common ownership and control unless the building permit is for the faithful recreation referred to above or unless otherwise agreed to by the commission. So here's the rationale. Having this just be 2 years and sitting vacant can sometimes be a real problem because, as we know from 18 Middle Road, as we know from other sites, that having a vacant lot with a foundation with this stuff sitting, it's a penalty, but it doesn't necessarily get you back to where you want to go. So this language allows the Historical Commission to be the negotiating body to attempt to return either the building or whatever was torn down, or do some other sort of secondary deal, so that this is not automatically default to 2 years or nothing. The other idea of having this financial fine portion in it is that you also have a financial obligation or a financial penalty that reinforces the penalty of the what am I trying to say? That reinforces the penalty of having the land just being vacant. Again, there have been issues about people just demolishing these structures and deciding just to wait out the 2 years, and just that it hasn't been a sufficient penalty. We haven't had this problem yet here, but they recommend this language, and I think it's a great idea. Simply because you don't want these people to be doing this, without permission. Now, again, the fine has this out clause unless otherwise agreed to by the commission, so that you're not linked here into some sort of no compassionate, no, just wait 2 years and be done with it, which is essentially what we're left with right now.
Michael, the thing that strikes me about this is it brings back the aspects that I think both Kate and Rebecca have commented that this puts us in the business of approving plans on some level, and that we didn't want to necessarily be the ones that, like in the case of the Main Street property we've been talking to the Connells about, you know, she presents a plan and we're in the mode of saying, well, that's good enough or not good enough. This puts us back in that spot. I agree we need an out, and maybe we're the right way to do it, but just we ought to recognize that it's going to put us in this negotiations position.
Well, only if the building's demolished. This doesn't put us in the planning aspect at all. And that brings up another good point. If you read through that packet, they recommend that the commission not be involved in all in these. We should tour the buildings, but we should have no say or really no vote, and this should not be an influencing factor about the cost of the rehabilitation. That there should be an independent review of a preservation architect to judge whether or not there's viability in the structure and determine some sort of level of cost, because this is having us make these decisions about plans and other things. A, we're not qualified, and B, I've never seen a developer or anyone that comes and says, oh, this property that I just purchased is in such fantastic shape, it could be sold to anyone tomorrow. They all say it's terrible, it can't be rehabilitated, no one will buy it, it's falling down, there's no plumbing, et cetera, et cetera. So you need an independent voice here to make those decisions. Again, this is only after someone knocks the building down.
Okay.
And essentially, this is what was negotiated by town council for 45 Highland, which is the replacement of this structure.
So that's been done as well? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that is what's happening. They're replacing that structure exactly as it was going to be back together again. If, and this is a big if, they can get permits to do so, because again, it was grandfathered in on a very odd lot with setbacks that are no longer advisable or no longer legal. So we bumped it back to planning. I haven't heard anything back again, but the idea is that they're going to put that same house back together, Humpty Dumpty back together again. Mm-hmm. This just puts this back into statute. I wish we'd known about this earlier, this language, when we did this back in 2015, but oh well. I think that this is really the way to get out of this. And I asked Chris also, or Rebecca did, so what's the relief, what's the appeal? And he said the appeal has always and historically always been the court system. If you have some negotiating room and you can't come to an agreement, then the appeal is the court system. But there's never generally an internal appeal within the town or other officers or anything like that. They also shared with us some court cases, interestingly, that the demolition delay bylaw has only been contested within the town twice, and both times the historical commissions won. So that's good news.
Michael,
Anyway,
can I ask a clarifying question on this paragraph we just reviewed?
Yeah, sure. Any questions, anytime.
So the way I read this is the penalty $300 per day until the structure is rebuilt. Is that what I'm reading?
2, I think.
Each day the violation exists shall constitute a separate offense. So does that mean a separate offense with a fine of $300?
Up to, yeah. There's discretion there in terms of whether or not that's implemented. I believe the discretion lies with the building commissioner.
Okay.
Of up to the fines.
Well,
Again,
that could get quite expensive, for thinking of Highland, for example, that could take several months, if not 6 months, 9 months, a year to recreate.
Yeah, unless otherwise agreed to by the commission. So I think if they agree to do that, then the thing goes. I mean, essentially, you're trying to disincentivize people from ripping down historic structures without a permit.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, just, it costs $100 to get a demolition. I mean, the permit costs are nothing. You know, it's some tiny little amount. So for $100, just get the permit and, you know, avoid all this stuff. I mean, you know, the part of the problem is that once you lose these historic structures, you never get them back. And even if they're faithfully recreated back again, I mean, you know, it's just, you know, it's a Disneyland kind of thing. So you're never going to faithfully recreate them back with a period wood. They'll look the same, but, you know, they're never going to have the character or the feel or the educational value that they would have had previously. So, you know, you want to try to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Again, I'm just putting this out there for now. I want you guys to spend some time thinking about this, read through that packet. We'll come back to this again and look through this. Every part of this is open for discussion, amelioration, change. Eventually this would have to go in front of town meeting. But I do think that something has to happen with the 2-year limit language so that there is someone that you can make some sort of compassionate decision in terms of, you know, understanding, you know, situational awareness. I think it's just too severe, and I don't think it serves the town very much interest. I mean, to have a vacant lot open next door to your house, you know, for 2 years with an open foundation is a safety issue. It's all sorts of other problems. So I don't know. As I say, I'm totally open. This is I literally pulled this exactly as worded out of the sample demolition delay bylaw and just plunked it down into the places where it would occur in ours so that you would know, you know, what the situations are. So we can look at this further for next time and, you know, see what you think. I mean, we can have some initial thoughts now though. Anybody want to weigh in on this?
So I just have one observation, not really related to anything particularly that you changed or added, but it seems as though we're still not defining substantial in the context of the actual bylaw. And is that something that we want to, you know, as we're updating it, do we want to, you know, put that in the bylaw now?
According to the packet information we received, they remove that language that we have is almost universal in the bylaws, and in the other towns, substantial is always defined within the context of the rules and guidelines as opposed to being written into the bylaw.
Okay.
The idea, so the general discussion was, so we're now back into this thing 3 times in 5 years, which I suppose as its original author is my bad. The idea is that's not supposed to be the case, that you want to change, put the things that can be changeable, that you may want to change your mind about, into the rules and regulations, and that, you know, put the stuff that's written in stone in terms of, you know, say penalties or definitions, et cetera, into the bylaw so that, you know, you're not adjusting it. So God bless you, whoever just sneezed. So the idea being that what we put, the things that we might want to have a little more flexibility on, might want to change, those things go in the rules and guidelines.
And Michael, I would agree with Annie then that we ought to have some cross-reference to the guideline sheet so that it's officially tied into this. It's like an appendix that we have the latitude to update, but shouldn't it be referenced here?
Can be, sure. Absolutely. I mean,
kind of like definitions and
yeah,
Changing beneficiaries is easier than changing the document itself, for example.
I'm sorry, Jim, what?
I said it's like a trust or something where you can change beneficiaries all day long without changing the actual document.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that exactly that you want to be able to put the more malleable stuff in the secondary things that you may want to, you know, change periodically.
But tie it together, you know, with a clear definition.
Yes, I mean, I was surprised, frankly, that they had bumped this into the regulations as opposed to sticking it up here. They have a very different set of regulations or proposed definitions of substantial, by the way, that you may want to take a look at. that you know, are very different from how we've done it. But in general, that's sort of the overview. It was an interesting conversation. You know, I didn't think we went into this with the idea that we would be adding this language all over the place. You know, we just wanted some help about, you know, what's going on in terms of, you know, pressure on us. But, you know, there you have it. This is what's been proposed. Frankly, I think that the penalty clause is fantastic. Whether other folks will think of this, I don't know. So what we would do is discuss it more next time. Send it to Mark Purple and the Board of Selectmen. Send it to the Planning Board. Whoever else we might think of that might need to see this. Obviously, Town Council would eventually be involved. You know, open it up to the public, see what they say. That's it. And there's the dog barking in the background. So
And I like the changes so far. I read through it quite a bit today. And one of the things that I noticed right away that Jim brought up too was that date change from 1925 to 75 years. I think that's important.
well, in all fairness, that was originally written that way. And one of the issues was that we got a lot of pushback on trying to have this date be rolling, because people were afraid their properties would be included in this, even though we offered to make the date rolling so far back that it was practically in prehistory.
Mm-hmm.
The idea, of course, is not to have to go back and revise this stuff, but also, you know, from an historical perspective, obviously, you know, I was thinking about this today. You know, these little tiny 50s, 60s houses, you know, that now are all the rage.
Oh, I was going to mention that, Michael. I think 50 years would be good to scoop up all of these mid-century houses that could
Yeah, well,
be
I
in
don't know.
peril.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I wanted, you know, prepared for that level of battle. I mean, eventually they would be scooped up, but after we're dead, which is probably how I would prefer to do this. But, you know, my point being that, you know, mid-century modern furniture, for instance, was all the stuff that everyone was always trying to, in my generation, was trying to get away from. It's the stuff your mother had, no one wanted it. It was all that 60s, 50s stuff. And now it's like, oh my God, unbelievable costs, unbelievable profits for people selling and buying this stuff. In the 1950s, Memorial Hall, which is the big Victorian behemoth down there, got struck by lightning or had a construction fire, I believe, actually. And the tower burned down. And the president of Harvard actually was rooting for the thing to burn down because he so hated this huge Victorian Gothic building and wanted to build this modern, ultra, you know, glassy kind of thing in its place. Now, you know, Memorial Hall is considered this gem of Victorian architecture, but it was hated back then. So the rollingness of this allows our successors here and the folks in town in 20, 30, 50 years to, you know, be able to appreciate history that we may not value to the degree that, you know, they may. Oh, it's a Contractor Palladian from 2002. So we'll see.
They won't be standing then.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Anyway, so that got a little more involved than I was anticipating, but that is the so that's the some projected changes to this. So what I'm proposing is that you have some time to study this, think about this, you know, talk to folks, and we'll come back and discuss this. There is a placeholder open. Let me stop the share here. Come back here. There's a placeholder open at this town meeting. If it's in March, we're definitely not ready. If it's in June, I don't know if we'll be ready. You know, in any event, I think it's something that we want to, you know, try to, you know, to move forward on some sort of time scale. So
Thank you for your work on this, Michael.
You know what? All I did is stick the stuff in there. This was Rebecca's good call. I really want to thank her again for this because
Good job, Rebecca. I think it's important, and like I said, I did read through it quite a bit today, and I've emphasized a bit lately is just the importance of, I don't want to have to make personal or decisions when it comes to these properties. Rather, I just want to be able to do what we were appointed to do, is instruct people of how they need to follow the bylaw and have it be as clear and specific as possible. And I think you guys are doing a great job helping that process along. So thank you.
Well, we're trying. Again, the part of the issue is that this stuff gets more and more complicated with each go around. So every time we have a new event coming along, we learn something new, but hopefully this is comprehensive enough and is also based on the state experience as opposed to ours. He was very straight-faced, Chris. And, I'm trying to make light of this, it's like, I bring some levity to it, and he's very, very straight-faced on this. And at one point I said, well, I'm surprised that you don't like this language, because we lifted it, almost entirely from our neighbors. And he said, yeah. What was his comment with? He said, yeah, repeating your neighbor's mistakes one step at a time. I thought, okay, thanks for that.
I think he would review it again if we wanted to send it to him, and once we've made.
Oh yes, I would definitely send it down to Mass Historical again for that purpose. So, all right, so that's that. Where else are we here? I think we're almost done. Oopsie doopsie whoopsie. Where's my agenda? Everything else open here, but the agenda. Okay, I've lost the agenda. What's next on the agenda, folks? Oh, here it is. There we go. Okay, review of potential contractors to update the historical building survey. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So, as you may have noticed, that language has been deleted out of the demolition delay bylaw because they said that survey was only to start up the process and should never be used as a reference document. So that saves the town $20,000 right there. So it doesn't have to be updated. You use the dates and the national guidelines, and that document is just an historical view in time and should not be the reference point of the bylaw. Either that or it does need to be updated all the time. So we've just deleted the language out, boom, gone, don't have to worry.
Right, but what definitive list do people then go check to find out, am I subject to this or not?
The assessor's records.
Which tells you the date, but it doesn't tell you if you're historically significant.
That's our job now.
That's our job.
Well, but so rather than doing this on a one-off basis, wouldn't we want a macros or other update to at least have something on paper that said, here's what we believe is the case and have a starting point?
Well, the other option, and this was again in the packet, is that historical commission can be proactive by creating a list of properties that they believe are subject to this bylaw. We can do that, but excuse me, again, that would have to be something that we'd have to hire someone to do because it's a fairly large job.
Well, it is.
I mean, under this scheme, if it's 75 or 85 years older, so you just do the math and you say, wow, okay, this is potentially subject to this bylaw. I need to check with the historical commission to see what they say. And you have this quick review process. It's, I think, total between the time it comes from the building commissioner to us and back, it's maximum of 15 business days or something. But, a quick review as to whether or not this is something that is potential. So I think that's how it's supposed to work, because as it currently works now, everything on that list and everything built before 1925 is historically significant, and it's automatically bumped into this voting on whether it's preferentially preserved.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it so? Where I'm coming from on this is I understand that's probably efficient, provided that we get the heads up that a request is being made to the building department. There's been some holes in that process, as you know. And in the past, they've been able to point to the macros list or otherwise to say you're in or you're out. So, we're a little more dependent on an external action for us to be asked to make a determination. If we could become part of that permitting process in an absolute way every time, and if you're comfortable we are, then I guess I don't have an objection. But I'm just a little concerned that without some historical record that says these are the buildings we think, whether that's Macris or one from our own, we could be in a bit of a in the dark on things.
Well, so I had discussions with Lori Lively about 18 Middle Road. We disagreed as to process. And when I had questions about, there's still no answers, for instance, as to why there was no demolition permit pulled. But then I heard something that seemed to indicate that demolition permits are not always pulled, but they're part of building permits. And so I said, well, if that's the case, then the demolition delay bylaw has a huge problem because it deliberately states there has to be a demolition permit.
Okay.
I didn't get an answer to that. And I've written Mark Purple stating that I think there needs to be a substantive review on how Southborough grants its permits in terms of, getting documentation together all at once, rather as opposed to doing this sort of thing piecemeal, to see, just to review how we go about that. And I mean, the town goes about this process of generating the necessity for a building permit, because it is still totally unclear how a building permit was granted for that structure that clearly showed that that building was going to be demolished, that didn't require a demolition permit. And when I wrote that to Mark Purple, he wrote back to me and said that he didn't think that I was being helpful in furthering the discussion. So I don't know what to tell you. I wrote him back and said, I really think that we need to talk to town council about this. So I agree. But we're ultimately dependent on external sources no matter what, because it's the assessor's records, it's some date somewhere. This new line does say, however, if you don't know the date, it's presumed to be more than to be covered, so that you can at least have a review of the structure. One thing I do want to stress is that although this looks complicated, this actually is a streamlining of this bylaw, because it gives people this very quick, immediate out at the beginning, as opposed to being sort of pulled into this long process fairly unwittingly. It also takes us out of the property review business, and just simply you make these determinations based on the National Register criteria. Does it meet this or it doesn't? Amen.
Right. Yeah.
And it takes us out of we can't, this is going to cost $900,000 to restore. No one's ever going to buy it. It's like, well, you bought it.
You broke it, you bought it. Yeah.
Yeah. You bought it. Maybe someone else would buy it. I want to talk to Lynn Spencer to see if she's potentially available or knows of people. I asked Chris Kelly at the state. He was not able to specifically recommend people through state regulations. If Lynn does this type of work, I'd love to work with her. She's our folks for the museum and St. Mark's and the library.
It's wonderful.
To take a walk through these properties and to get an assessment at the cost of the, applicant, as to what the real viability of this stuff is. And if it really truly is totally irreparable, well, then by all means, okay, it has to come down, regrettable as it is. But if this is someone's interpretation, because I will honestly say, when I saw the 153 Middle Road go down, and that house and barn, I think that was there was a problem in the process on our end, frankly.
Well, exactly. And by the way, I'm 200% on board with making the document easier to handle and manage, and eliminating some of these unnecessary steps, the quick out, all of that's perfect. I'm coming at this more from the vantage point of, and I've been involved a couple of years here, so it's not a long time, but every time we've had a surprise, oh my God, this is missing, demolished, it's gone now, it was because of a process failure. And if we have a DDBL that depends on an efficient process, then it behooves us or the town to fix that somehow, or make a process step that we get involved. I don't know what the right answer is, but I feel like we're but cleaning up and making the review easier and better, totally on board. But are we going to be notified enough times, or are we going to have more of these unpleasant surprises? That's what I see the most.
Yeah. I think one other thing he recommended is you get you get the building commissioner, the building department on board early in figuring out what the process is and make sure that they're supportive. Maybe we can do that.
Well, they have been quite cooperative. I mean, in the sense that, that they've put us on the historical permitting process. I get whatever that thing is called,
Right.
or something, whatever the all the permitting thing is. So we do get to weigh in there. I guess this would have worked. Excuse me, Jim. I guess this would have, had we been involved in that on 18 Middle Road, we would have seen that there was an issue here and been able to flag it. However, that also means reviewing all these long plans. I mean, you said, you didn't want to be in the plans business, but that brings us, someone, you, us, into the scope of looking at every single building permit that comes to the town that involves these structures, and seeing whether or not there's demolition involved. I've been pushing back on this because I don't want to become the unpaid volunteer of the building commissioner.
I'm on board with that too. But you remember the recommendations we made to Lori was that we would have a more clear definition of the age of the property right on the face of the application, and then there would be historic commission review required checkbox up front. So we had a couple of process things like that. I don't know if that puts us in too much of a mode of doing plans, because I agree with you, we don't want to be doing all that, but there's some, I'm trying to just float the idea that we should come up with some more definitive trigger so we don't have more of these ugly surprises.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we can't afford to lose more historic structures. We've lost 2 in 6 months or less. At that rate, we're burning through them pretty fast. And they were both process failures. You're absolutely correct. And so I'm not, I've sent over the guidelines that we did. I've requested that they be sent out to everybody involved. And as far as I know that they are, but I've written repeatedly to Mark saying that I really do think that because Mark is the boss of the building department, and so I said, I think that we need to have a better idea of this process and that how this happens, because if building permits can generate demolitions without a demolition permit per se, then we're in real trouble. So again, and I think that process is ongoing and in review. And in the meantime, let's pray. It's a new year, everybody. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. Anyway. So, to be continued, I guess, is whether or not we need to actually do that list. I think if we ever got to the position that we had some money and could be proactive and could do that and hire someone to do that, I think, perhaps, yes. Also, I just want to, send out the tendrils to you guys. There's a wonderful program in town about hiring our seniors for tax relief. We certainly have opportunities. And I think some stuff that could potentially be done remotely at the museum, or certainly with people only in the museum via the Historical Commission for records and things. So if you know folks that are looking for those kind of opportunities, it does require a certain level of computer savvy in terms of imaging and scanning and things like that, but nothing fantastically hard. And these days, I think everyone's scanning photo albums and things like that. So I believe that the hiring period is coming up shortly, or we may be in it. I'll have to check on that, but definitely want to, make you aware of that and to see if there's any candidates that are looking for employment. So, any other business that may legally come before the commission?
I paid an internet bill. That's all I got from the treasurer's report.
Wow,
And I
okay.
just got word that I have a water bill waiting for me there. So that's it. That's my update.
The other item I was going to ask about is, and you partially addressed it, Michael, is the current status of 18 Middle Road. You know, how's that shaken out with the owners?
I have pushed back and written back saying we're not rewriting the history of that structure. We think it is we know it is an 1898 structure. We know it's covered by the demolition delay bylaw, and any other attempts to see, go any other way around this by rewriting the history are not going to be countenanced by the Historical Commission.
Right. Then that I think is the town working out a solution?
Well, and so I said, the real question here is how this got demolished without a demolition permit. And so where is the fault? Is the fault with the contractor? Is the fault with the building commissioner? Is there some, middle ground that can be achieved? I said the middle ground has to be achieved by negotiations between the town and the owner over the issue of the missing demolition permit. It cannot be with the Historical Commission over rewriting the historical record.
Right. Now, I was just asking a hopeful question, are the Flynn's going to be able to get this solved anytime soon? Because he really was very, very emotionally concerned that he'd be able to keep.
I absolutely agree.
Out.
I have repeatedly requested that this be sent to town council and that they act on this. I can only write and request. And therefore I've done everything I can possibly do and to do this, because I do think that there's some I don't think any of us would have any objections to finding some compromise here.
Yeah.
That involved a negotiation. It's involved answering the question as to what happened with the demolition permit and who's to blame for that. I think everyone here is also equally in agreement that we're not going to rewrite the history of that structure in order to exempt it from the demolition bylaw.
Right.
And so that was what was being actively proposed by certain people in around this issue, certainly by the architect, a couple of the folks in town government. It's like, oh, don't you think you could possibly look at this again? It's like, we're not rewriting history. So the solution has to come from them. And I would urge them to do this as soon as possible, because these poor folks need to get some resolution, as quickly as possible. This is a very, very unfortunate circumstance, but it is out of our hands, and I'll keep you posted when I hear back from this. I just don't think we have any further role here at all.
Okay. I mean, I realize you've probably got 10 hours into this, just bantering and phone calls. And
8, 10. It's like, this is this problem that doesn't go away because frankly, it involves, people saying, oh, someone has to step up to the plate and say, we screwed up. It wasn't us.
Right.
So that's all I can say here.
It's been masterfully handled as best you can. I see that. I don't think there's anything I can do to help it. If there is, let me know.
Thank you. I do my best, and I try to have a sympathetic ear to everything, but I really not rewriting history. That's just not happening. So, all right. Well, I will entertain a motion to adjourn unless I hear any other excitement from any of you.
Motion to adjourn.
Ms. Battles, do I have a second?
Second.
And Ms. Annie says second. So I'd say we are officially adjourned. I want to thank you again, as I always do. I try to and remember to do this, but for all your good work and efforts. Everyone's really pulling their weight here. And I know it's always hard during these times with so many other things to do. I'm not a big Zoomer. Fortunately, I know a lot of you are. So this is agony, I think, for a few of us. But I really want to thank you for all the work that you're doing for the town and for history, because I do think we're really making a difference. And looking forward to actually getting back together and planning, meeting back in the museum and planning some fun stuff. And talking. I mean, obviously we should be talking about historical, Heritage Day and all that stuff. Obviously, it's all entirely up in the air right now. So all we can do is battle onward. So,
We got to do a roll call vote.
We have to do a roll call vote?
Roll call for adjourning.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I know, it's so nice. I have all these parliamentarians here. Then I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so let's see. Ms. Rebecca,
Yes.
Ms. Annie,
Yes.
Ms. Kate,
Yes.
Ms. Amanda,
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
I believe actually for those minor things, you can presume unanimous consent by the chair. I think I did read that in, unless, without objection, I think is the technical phrase.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, you can say without objection, and then you don't actually have to do the roll call vote.
Mhm.
So I did read those rules just to get started. Don't always remember them though. Anyway,
Doing
okay,
great, Michael.
goodbye.